I will yield. I will now recognize Ranking Member Cohen for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Crowder, you've only been on the job about a month. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
Cougars, Bearcats, or Wildcats?
I'm sorry?
Cougars, Wildcats, or Bearcats?
University of Cincinnati Bearcats, University of Kentucky Wildcats, sir.
Good answer, Mr. Massey.
Thank you, sir.
You got a good one there. Mr. Landgraf, your airport, no, it was really Mr. Crowder. You weren't at the airport at the time, but Cincinnati got clobbered just like Memphis did when Delta dehubbed. And we had Mr. Anderson before us, who was the president of Delta, and he swore that that wasn't going to happen. Cincinnati wasn't going to be dehubbed. Memphis certainly wasn't going to be dehubbed. He loved the rendezvous, and he loved this guy and that guy and this thing and that thing. It was not going to happen. And then he lied, and we got dehubbed. What happened in the Cincinnati airport? How much of y'all, the Northern Kentucky / Cincinnati airport, how many terminals or how many areas of square footage have y'all lost, or have you redeployed it in some other way since they were dehubbed?
Well, obviously, dehubbing was a considerable shock because the airport was really built around the Hub Connect concept, and we are dealing, as I mentioned in my testimony, with a $200 million plus baggage handling system challenge because the baggage handling system was put in place by Delta, and it was really designed around that connecting passenger and not the origin and destination airport that we've become after the dehubbing occurred. But obviously, we had to make some tough decisions, Mr. Ranking Member. We had to take terminals down that were no longer functional.
You tore them down?
Yes, sir, we did. We had to tear terminals down that were no longer functional. We didn't need that space, and we had to reconfigure the entire land side of the airport, which we've done successfully, but at considerable expense, as you can imagine. The gate areas are a better story than the land side. The gate areas we've been able to utilize as we've diversified our air service. Obviously, we still have additional gates, so we're always welcome to additional air service from our airline partners. But the airport on the air side functions very efficiently, and we do have gate space available. But because of the diversification between ultra-low-cost carriers and regional carriers and major carriers, we've actually really done a good job at utilizing our gate space that's available. So we're comfortable in terms of where we're at from a capacity standpoint now.
Did Delta help at all when you needed to change, or did they not have any responsibilities at that point?
Yes, sir. They did help, and they continue to help. They have been supported our capital improvement program, our bond issuance, the PFC applications, as well as continuing to be the largest carrier in the Cincinnati market at about, I'd say, roughly a 35% market share.
Great. Mr. Sutton, one of the things we did in the reauthorization bill was to make it where people who had mobility problems and had wheelchairs get better standards and rules for their devices. What are the biggest obstacles, in your opinion, are there to the implementation of the new regulations and laws concerning the safe handling of wheelchairs on airplanes?
Thank you, sir. So what we've noticed is that a lot of training or lack of training isn't available to the membership as a whole. We recognize that a lot of these devices, they're not all the same, and they change in various ways. And we were looking at trying to find functional ways outside of training to be able to transition from a ticket counter where individuals may check in, or at the gate area where they may have their wheelchairs or mobility devices, sent down to the ramp area. So we were looking at, are there ways that a lot of the airports today actually have like dumb waiters or elevators, service elevators that are designed for things of that nature, but not all airports have this. So we're looking at other apparatuses that can be utilized on the ramp itself so the employees can then transition, load these devices without damaging or creating any disruptions in the transfer of the passenger going on their journey.
Thank you, sir. To all three of you, has DOGE affected any of your operations? Seen any places where they've cut positions that might affect Raleigh or Cincinnati?
At least for RDU, as of today, as we speak today, haven't seen any impact, especially from an FAA standpoint. But I think a lot of those cuts are going into place. We'll have to monitor that a little bit to see exactly what happens to the different agencies.
And the IIJA, which was passed, how has that affected your airport and your airport?
Yeah, so if you're talking about the BIL dollars that we actually receive, so again, I'll give you an idea. We have a $1 billion runway. 1% of that's going to be paid for out of the entitlement. We've got about 2% discretionary, and those BIL dollars represent about 7%. The total for funding from the federal government to pay for that runway is about 11%. So BIL is a large portion of that overall program. So funding that has been extremely helpful to RDU. But again, you're talking about 11% of an overall larger program we've got. Pretty small investment for a lot of the regulatory requirements that we've got that are placed on the airport.
To your question, Mr. Ranking Member, with regard to DOGE, we have not experienced any adverse impacts. However, we have made a hire onto our staff from one of the FAA employees that was reduced as a part of those activities. So we're very happy to have a well-qualified person join our team. As my colleague, Mr. Langus, said, we've been very fortunate with BIL, AIG, and ATP funds. We've received over $86 million at CBG, and we'll be looking for additional dollars against this terminal modernization program that I mentioned in the last round.
Thank you, I yield back.
Gentleman yields. I now recognize